So it's been a while since I was at this garden room site, and Jubi's made a great job of fitting these doors. They're working really well, really substantial. We have been getting questions about the electrics. A lot of people wanted to know what we did about the electrics. And again, I wasn't involved in this, but Jubi actually battened all the way around the wall at 500 centres, and then he used basically a shower panel material which is tongue and grooved together. That again is stuck to the battens, so no problem there. And that allowed just enough room for the wiring to go through for the electrics. But the electrics were left to a qualified electrician, and it's very important when you're doing external electrics, follow all the rules. Now, you've got to remember this is a metal building, so the last thing you'd want is a stray live touching the metal and then somebody coming along to open the door and finding they got electric shock. So it's got to be RCD protected, and it's got to be signed off by an electrician. And actually it took us a while to get the electrician around to do this job, but in the meantime we were able to run it as a functional room so that they could use the gym simply by using the EcoFlow Delta Pro, which is a power pack that you can charge up and then you can put all your mains power into it, everything else. So it was running the treadmill, it was doing everything else in the house, and we ran that like that for a few months until the electrician got in, linked up the mains power, and now that EcoFlow Delta Pro is in the house, linked up to provide emergency backup if there's any kind of power outage in the house.
We've chopped it at the sides. I'm going to leave like about 5-7mm gap just so it can expand. There we go, and that's just clicked in. You have this little bit that sits in a recess of that one, so when you then push this down, this then clips and pings into there, which is why you get that nice positive click as you push it down. It just holds it nice and level, and it also means that you don't have to slide it in. Literally down, click, job done. As we've been putting the boards down, we use just an offcut to give it a bang, just to make sure that they're sat all the way in. And you know when they're not sat all the way in, because when you put this in, it just sits up a little bit at the back. So what you do is you grab an old offcut like that, put it on there with a rubber hammer, give it a bang, and you'll find that rather than sitting up, it then just sits perfectly flush, and that means it's fully seated. But once you get to the edge, you can't get a hammer to it. So you just have to slide, get it in that gap. And that just makes sure that's now fully engaged. Two-way here, one for the exterior lights, which are on sensors, and then another switch for the 4 wall lights. And then all these panels line up along there, so we get a nice firm fix. And what I'm going to do is just little pin nails through there, just to hold that in place. Then the next one comes in, sits into that groove, and because this one's been pinned back, it obviously just holds it in place. Once we get to these corners, we can have this one coming to the wall, the next one coming up, which means we're going to have a cut edge along this side. I'll get it as best I can, and then what we'll do is just run a bead of silicone or just a little bit of a trim just in that corner.
What are you using on that?
Dura Plus, which seals, bonds, even underwater, fixes, seals, plugs, glues, anti-mold technologies, all in one type affair. You could probably use just a silicone, but I think this is going to give a much better seal, and it's actually going to hold it firmer than a silicone. A silicone's always going to have that little bit of give, but it is nice to have something that, although it should be dry in here, Should the worst happen, at least you know the glue that you're using isn't going to fail you. Perfect. We've put the paneling up. It's normally used in a shower or for shower application, but that's great. It means it's waterproof, shouldn't expand, shouldn't shrink. Lights have been fitted outside. They're on a PIR, so they'll just click in when it gets dark. Plug sockets are now in, and the lights are wired up.
I've got a question about those lights.
Yeah.
Why are they so small?
That's because the person who bought them didn't look at the measurements of the lights. So, I mean, they'll do the job.
Yeah.
The thing is, you've got an up and a down. They're LEDs, so they'll probably be quite bright, even though they're small.
Yeah.
And in here with a white room, it's going to be absolutely fine.
Now, I was looking at those lights. It doesn't look like they've got a removable bulb. So what do you do?
No, well, a lot of them now, and I've just bought some at home, and they're quite expensive, but you can't change the LEDs.
Oh.
They're not changeable. But they say they've got X thousand hours of working runtime, so I don't know.
Well,
time will tell.
This is going to be used as a gym, so if the bulb ever goes out, you'll have a very fit person.
Yeah, you'll be very flat pop in there like that, and that actually matches the flooring, so that's quite nice. And I think once that's in, I think it'll look pretty tidy. So what I've done with the joints is that some of them, they will be tight at the top and tight at the bottom, and just a slight gap, nothing major. But what I've done is I've just got some silicone and got my Fuji and just ran some silicone in the gap.
Yeah.
And then got some white spirits and wiped it off. So the hazing you can see is just the white spirits. So once that's dried, give it a couple of days, get a cloth and just buff that back up, and that'll be absolutely fine. That'll come up shiny.
Yeah.
I've still got to put a little bead of silicone because the 25mm was the biggest I could find down at B&Q. So 25 is fine. I've probably got like 3-4mm gap there. And same thing again, I'll get the Fuji, get some silicone and just run it down that edge.
It's all working beautifully now, and hopefully the owners are keeping fit in their new gym.